So a young woman, unmarried, writes from Boston, Massachusetts. She's obviously leading a religious life, and she finds herself, possibly at university or whatever, being constantly challenged by people around who are not who are not observant, and asking her questions about Judaism. And she's very bothered because she can't always find all the right answers to the questions which are being put to her. And I sympathize with her entirely. I know exactly what it feels like. So she says to the Rebbe, this is a very uncomfortable situation. I'm being asked questions and I just don't have the knowledge to answer them. So the Rebbe says to her, look, he said, you shouldn't be discouraged by that, because you should know that even veteran scholars who've engaged in the study of the Torah for many, many years can't always answer all of the questions. And by the way, that's not surprising, because a human being is a created being, and you can't possibly understand the wisdom of the creator. So we don't have all the answers. That's the bottom line. And don't be ashamed of the fact that you don't have all the answers, because that's just a fact of life. But the important thing is it shouldn't in any way influence what you actually do, your actions. Because you don't understand something is not a reason for you to stop doing it. And then he goes into saying, by the way, if you look a little bit more carefully, what you'll discover is that the people who are challenging you with questions are actually not interested in the truth. They're not asking questions really to find the answers. Obviously, some are, but a lot of the people who throw questions at religious people are doing so because they are trying to justify their own lifestyles as against your lifestyle. They have ancestors who, for many generations, have lived a religious life, and in some instances, he says, gave up their lives for their Jewishness, whereas they have exchanged the obligations and spiritual treasures for material comforts of life. And so therefore, in the challenging of the questions, you need to understand where a person is coming from in order to be able to answer them. And don't think that it is actually about giving them the answer. Sometimes a lot more subtle than that. And it's actually answer a person in terms of what they're really asking, not what they appear to be asking. And finally, this young woman has said, it seems to me that it's a good idea to put oneself in a non-Jewish environment because then you can really prove one's religious convictions and spiritual strength. If you want to prove that you really believe, go and put yourself somewhere where you're going to be tested. The Rebbe is very unimpressed with this. And he says, I don't agree with that. I think that every single day, even the greatest tzaddik, the greatest religious person, righteous person, at the very beginning of our prayers says, prays to God and says, V'lo lidei nisayon, please God, do not put me into the hands of a trial. Don't test me. I ask you, please, I'm not looking for tests in life. So you don't have to take the hard way. Sometimes you need to be sensible and take the easy way. So, but if God himself puts you to that test, then of course one has to be very firm and prove oneself to be worthy. But that's if God puts you in the test. But you don't put yourself into tests if you can possibly help.